Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to show you in plants and explain to you why we plant in the fall. Of course, we are North Carolina Zone 7B in Dallas, North Carolina. We are just west of Charlotte, and we really promote to our customers and our viewers that the fall really is the optimal time to go ahead and plant your trees, your shrubs, perennials. It is a fantastic time to get these plants in the ground and established. So today we're going to do more of an in-depth of why do we say that? Why do we tell you to plant in the fall? Now, if this is your first time viewing Gardening with Creekside, or if you're relatively new to the channel, this is a privacy berm that we installed less than a year ago. We did not begin construction on this project until October of last year. So we haven't even made it to the first birthday yet. And really kind of just to give you a little bit of a background story, the purpose of the berm was, one, we wanted beautiful gardens because you always need more gardens, right? But we wanted a way to kind of physically separate the public spaces of the nursery and the private spaces of our home. And so we had this whole big project in mind. This is kind of Jerry's idea, and then we just had fun together and ran with it. Basically, this berm is 100 feet long, and it varies anywhere. Up at the top, it is the widest because we wanted to include the existing maple trees that were here. I believe this is like 50 or 60 feet wide here, and then it just goes in and out as we go down. So we had a lot of infrastructure to put in, because I'm sure we can find some video footage of what this space looked like before we did anything. And so it was just literally this grassy field. So we had to start from scratch on this. So when we started in October, we had a lot of infrastructure we had to put in. We had to shape the bed, bring the soil in. We had to install the fence. We went ahead and put the bones of the irrigation in. So we were a little bit delayed in putting our plants in. We did not start planting the trees and the shrubs last year until early November. Some people think, oh my gosh, I can't plant then, like it's way too late, like it's winter. And depending on your zone, we are North Carolina Zone 7B, you may have to adjust your timeline a little bit. But all the trees, shrubs were planted in, like I said, started in early November, went through November, and then we kind of wrapped it up for the season in early December. So we're going to go through and I want to show you these plants, how they're doing, and kind of give you just an overview of what they are. When I was designing this bed in my mind, I knew that I wanted some trees. So we have three really like significant trees that are going to be like tall shade trees. We have 2 cherries and then a purple plum. But we also have a beautiful pine. This is a thunderhead Japanese black pine. A lot of people love this tree because it's just really fun and whimsical. It's going to be wider than it is tall. The reason that I wanted to go ahead and get what I told Jerry last year, I was like, before the winter hits, I want to put the bones in. The bones to me are your larger trees and those large shrubs. We do that because it is the optimal time for their roots to grow and develop. You don't have the stress of the heat and humidity that we currently have right now in August, right? I think the whole country as a whole, it's August, it's late August, everybody's hot, it's humid. This is a stressful time to kind of be installing big things unless you are right on top of your plants. By installing and planting these bones in the garden at that time, I had all winter, all spring for these roots to grow and develop and get really well established. You want those roots to go down and out. Seek out the food, seek out the water before the stress of the summer hits. As a side note, this bed currently is on irrigation. I run it about once a week, but when we installed the bed, planted the plants, there was no irrigation. We did not water these because our winters are historically wet, damp. We get a lot of good rain, consistent rain through the winter. So the black Japanese pine is doing wonderful. We also went ahead and planted throughout the month of November our hydrangeas. So this is Quickfire Fab, and Quickfire Fab is relatively new on the market. We have 3 of them kind of framing the Japanese pine, the thunderhead. So there's 3 of them here. These are going to be some of the earliest blooming panicle hydrangeas that you have. Now you can see I have got the old blooms. These are the ones that bloomed first. But look what I have, right? I also have beautiful new flower and new growth coming. So the lighter green foliage that you see, that is all new growth that is developing. I have another sweet, fresh little bud right here. So hydrangeas, they do really, really well being planted in the fall. If you're ever going to plant a hydrangea, I highly, let's say this one more time, highly recommend that you plant your hydrangeas in the fall or like winter. Fall is absolutely the absolute best. Side note, being real here, remember I planted 3 pufferfish up at the chicken coop a couple of weeks ago? They are one's looking good, the other 2 are awful. I think one's has probably perished and one is going out. I am watering as much as I possibly can, but I knew I was taking a risk by planting them, but I went ahead and took the risk. If I had planted those pufferfish in October, November, December, they would be handling the heat and humidity of August like champions, just like these quick fire fabs are. I have a pufferfish down here that I'm going to show you that I planted at that time. She's stunning, gorgeous. Plant these plants, the shrubs, the trees, in those cooler temperatures so your roots get really well and established and developed. Now, more examples of what we went ahead and planted. If you've been following us, you know this with this project. Trees, shrubs went in the fall, and then early this spring we went ahead and added in the perennials. For us it was more of a timing issue as far as availability, not so much the fact of, you know, it was the perfect time to do it. But it worked out really well because we got them in early in the season. Here we have Vino Verde, and this is a weigilla, and I just saw, look, we've got some little blooms. So especially when you have plants according to your zone, so I'm a 7B, when you have trees, shrubs, perennials that are cold hardy to 2 or 3 or 4 zones colder than what you are, that's a definite sign that you want to plant them in the fall, because they're going to be really cold hardy and those roots are going to grow. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of a healthy root system on your plant, whether it's a tree, shrub, perennial, or an annual. If you have happy roots, you're going to have a happy plant. These weigillas are doing great. We have 3 of them through here, and they have had great growth on them. All right, moving on down. One of the other, this is not technically a tree. It falls under the category of a shrub because it comes from our friends at Spring Meadow Nursery. This is the honeysuckle. This is Sensation honeysuckle. This too was planted in November, and she is blooming her head off, and I dare say she smells really good. Now, I have had folks ask me early on, they're like, does it really smell? And I was like, well, I don't know, but standing here, totally smells. It is that delicious fragrance of a honeysuckle. It is, for me, it is an evergreen. Even when we had the Arctic blast, it kept its foliage. So you get these beautiful blooms, right? And then when the blooms are done, I don't know if Jerry showed you the red berries. So the red berries will come after the blooms. So this was one of those very first blooms on it. You do have to train this a bit as far as it's not going to completely self-twine, so you've got to get it started, and once it gets started, then it goes. But I'm happy to report it smells delicious. Another great one, and this is a great example of don't ever give up on your plants, y'all, until the very end. And talking about that pufferfish up at the garden shed, the chicken coop, I'm not going to give up on it yet. I'm not ripping it out of the ground. I'm still watering it. This is a sweet talker viburnum. Sorry, I was getting my viburnums mixed up. This is a sweet talker viburnum, and it is definitely, I think it's from a 7 to a 9, I believe, is its hardiness zone, and this will get nice and big. Sweet talker is an evergreen viburnum, and it's called sweet talker because in the early spring, like late winter really, it puts on little tiny pink blooms that smell divine. We installed this, planted this as a 3-gallon, just at the same time, November, right? We had that Arctic blast that came through, hit the whole country at Christmas time, right before Christmas. This was much smaller at the time. It completely defoliated. I mean, the leaves were burnt and it just dropped all of its leaves. And I was just heartbroken because I love this plant. Guess what? Almost a couple of weeks after it defoliated, I could see little buds of growth coming out. Completely rebounded. This thing has what? I don't know, quadrupled in size. It is massive, and it's going to have beautiful fall color, but it's going to be nice and big here. So I've got one on each side of the purple plums, but getting it in there, even though it was a warm shrub and it defoliated, it had time to get established because this was one of the very first things that went in here. Its roots were established, happy roots, and it was able to save the plant. So sweet talker viburnum is one. These were, again, hydrangeas. Cannot emphasize enough that hydrangeas do fantastic being planted in the fall. If you are a southerner and you are thinking about planting a hydrangea, please plant it in the fall. Depends, I would say anywhere from like September through December. I mean, even like January, February, depends on where you are. Get those babies in the ground. You're going to be basically planting sticks. Sweet friend of ours who has now gone to be with the Lord, he joked all the time with me, is like, you sold my wife a bunch of sticks because the plant was dormant, but it performed beautifully in the summer. So yes, you're going to be planting sticks, but it's going to give you beautiful growth. These are little lime punches. You can see in the south we turn brown, right? They go brown, but look right here, we've got a bud. So I'm gonna have fresh flowers coming up, a bud here. I've got new growth coming out everywhere. Great. Pugster pinkers. Pugster pinker butterfly bushes, buddleias. These two were planted all in November. They were smaller size, at 3-gallon size, and just gorgeous. I mean, look at this beautiful plant, right? I like the pugsters because they don't completely defoliate, say like Miss Molly or the Cascades. They hold their foliage even just a little bit. Y'all, this plant is just absolutely stunning. Even in the Arctic blast, it did not miss a beat. It held on, it did great. People will ask if I deadhead my butterfly bushes. I don't. It's just simply like a time thing for me. And it's producing beautiful foliage on it. But those pugster butterflies, this is pinker. I think pinker is one of my absolute favorites because look at this habit on it. Nice and tight, compact, and there's one over here. I scared the butterflies away, but we've got swallowtails that will come here. We have monarchs that come on it. It's early in the morning, so they're just kind of waking up, but the pugster butterfly bushes do really well. This is a purple plum. This is a thundercloud purple plum. One of the very first things to go in the flower bed is definitely more in the center of the flower bed. And purple plums are really fun because in the south, sometimes we struggle with dark leaf trees being in full sun because they'll burn. The thundercloud is one of those rare dark leafed trees that loves the full sun. It has beautiful foliage on it. Now you might go, Jenny, that's awful kind of thin. Well, when we planted it, I did not realize that the Japanese beetles enjoy this tree, and we did not treat it, and they basically completely defoliated the tree. All of this that you see is brand new growth within the last month, and so it is doing great. Not only do you get this beautiful, like nice dark color on it, in the springtime, it is a beautiful, like it flowers almost like a cherry tree, right? So you have that look of the beautiful spring flowers, early spring, and then great foliage. It'll look better next year because we'll treat it for the Japanese beetles. We won't let them chew on it. But yeah, so we've got these babies in here as well. So coming on down, you'll notice that like the beds kind of repeat as far as like on this side. We've got, this is that other sweet talker right here. We've got the other honeysuckle. We've got the other little lime punches right here. Yeah, the perennials, everybody else is doing great. Let's see. But talking about perennials, if you want to add perennials in the fall, absolutely do that. This is the Amsonia. This is the string theory Amsonia right here, and it would be a great one to add in the spring. In the fall. It blooms in the spring. And so the string theory is a great one too, because it's so cold hardy, would do really well. Your hostas, your brunneras, your astilbe, your ferns, all of those do great being planted in the fall. Really, really nice. The ones, because somebody did ask, you know, what do I not plant in the fall? You might want to be cautious about planting like your really perennials and shrubs that love the hot weather, like agastache, right? Agastache, your echinaceas, they love it really, really hot. If you're going to plant them, I would plant them right now. Now is the time to get them in the ground. Let those roots get established because they're active in the heat. That's where they're really active growing there. But when in doubt, go to your local garden center, come here, ask us, is this the best time to plant a hibiscus? Is this the best time to plant a North Pole arborvitae? We'll guide you for sure. Now, I cannot help but talk about this plant. The spider webs are out this morning. This is a Winecraft Gold smoke bush. And y'all, this was an experiment for me because I always thought we were gonna be too warm for a smoke bush, especially a bright colored lime chartreuse colored one. Our friends at Spring Meadow sent me one to test out. Clearly, she's doing fine. This plant has been my biggest surprise out of everybody. When we planted it last year in November, it was very small. It was little. This thing has quadrupled in size and done magnificently well. Beautiful, like it's still growing. Like we still have new growth on here. It has branched out really, really well. Could not be happier with this. But again, I think the key to the success of this smoke bush is that I planted it in those cooler temperatures all winter long. There was massive root growth happening underneath the ground. We saw nothing up top, right? Because the smoke bush will defoliate. No sign of life in the wintertime. All the action was happening underground. And then when the warmer temperatures, you know, rose and we've had heat, we've had humidity, and this thing just loves it. Absolutely adores this spot. Cannot talk about this one enough. And then one of the other big things that we put in right away, these were, I always had the vision that I wanted these here. These are your North Pole arborvitaes. And the North Poles are obviously a beautiful evergreen tree. They are going to be more narrow than they are wide. Yeah, more narrow, not wide. They get to be, I think it's like 8 to 10 feet and about like 3 feet wide. And you'll notice that we planted, there's 7 of them here. So there's 4 on the back and then there's 3 on the front. We did what we call a window pane. Because I wanted the bottom of this berm, I needed some, quote, weight on the berm down here so that it would anchor the end of the flower bed. Plus, these will grow up when they're fully mature. There will be basically a solid wall of these, being that double layer, window painting them, and then we planted them about 3.5 feet on center from each other. So they're gonna fill in. They have already grown a ton, right? I mean, these were they 15 or 7s? 15. These were 15 gallons when we put them in because we wanted to kind of give them the biggest boost that we could. Great evergreen tree, plenty cold hardy, and has filled in beautifully. You can also see that the spiders love them. So when you're planting your trees, you're thinking about not only aesthetics, right? I think as a gardener, probably our initial choices will depend on the aesthetics, right? We want plants that look good and that they serve our purpose in our landscape. But you also want to consider nature, right? How are these plants going to support your environment, your nature in your garden? Because we love having all of our little friends in the gardens. So your evergreen trees and shrubs provide beautiful protection for all of your songbirds. If you remember, if you've been with us in the springtime up there at the Thunderhead Pine, I had a bird that had actually created her nest in the base of the plant. And so I had to be really careful when I was walking around and planting because I didn't want to disturb mama bird and her nest. You need your evergreens to give that protection for your songbirds. We are, shall we say, I guess, blessed with a wide plethora of birds, including hawks. And hawks do enjoy the songbirds as a little, meal. So when the birds can come in here and hide from predators, it provides a great thing. And then, of course, you want to have your pollinators and so forth. But these all are doing well. Now, remember how I talked to you about the pufferfish, and that the pufferfish that I planted in the heat of the summer at the chicken coop on the struggle bus? Well, this pufferfish was planted last November, December, and look at her. Look at this. Now, this is what a pufferfish is supposed to do. Oh my gosh, y'all. And I've had to actually come in here and trim my cleome back. I need to do it again because it's getting my pufferfish. Look at this bloom. This is one bloom right here. Huge, y'all. It's just huge. That's all there is to say about this. This bloom right here is starting to do the typical pufferfish, where it'll send up, if you can see that little sprout, that little sprig that's coming up. And notice we've got beautiful new blooms all over it. Now, you might be saying, well, Jenny, why in the world did you plant all these cleomes right here? Because it's hiding your pufferfish. My pufferfish wasn't that big. And so it has really taken off in the heat and humidity because it clearly has very happy roots. Next year, if I plant the cleome, which I probably will because I really like it, I will only do a couple, and they'll be single ones along the back. They will not come here because I want the pufferfish really to be the star of the show. So pufferfish is doing really well, as is, we're going to come right here. We passed it because I wanted to show you the pufferfish. This is a golden Oakland holly right here. This little guy right here. It too is getting swallowed up. Y'all, I have come in here already and cut back. This is Wicked Witch coleus, but I'm going to come in here again and really trim it out because I need the light to get all around this this holly. Golden Oakland holly is going to be eventually will be like 15 feet tall, nice and wide. Can you imagine though, when it's full grown, this beautiful color with the North Poles as a backdrop to it? Stunning. Now, this one doesn't technically fit the mold, but it would, but I have to tell you about it. Okay. They do. So what I'm talking about, you're like, Jenny, what are you talking about? Okay, y'all, can we just talk about this pink Cascade 2 butterfly bush? Look at it. I don't want to get too terribly close right now because I have got swallowtails all over this plant. But the pink Cascade, since she moved, I'll come up right here. The Cascade family of buddleias, this is from our friends at Walter's Gardens. They produce massive, huge, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. Ginormous. There's not enough adjectives in the world to describe how big these blooms are. And as it being called the Cascade, they do have a cascading habit. I moved this in, was it late spring, early summer? It took a big hit. It pitched a fit with me. Clearly it does fine. But if I had planted it last year, it really, really would be very, very happy. Another thing that I want to share with you too are camellias. So on this side, again, I will have to adjust all of my annuals here. These are, I have 3 of them in here. These are the October Magic Ruby camellias from our friends at Southern Living. These are going to be sun-loving camellias. These are sasanquas, meaning they bloom in the fall, because you can tell because they have the little tiny leaves on them. Planted these in that November last year too. Even with the Arctic blast, I guess maybe because it's on this side of the berm, they never took a hit. They were beautiful and they are covered in buds. So Ruby, hence its name, is going to give us beautiful double deep red ruby flowers in the fall. So we have those 3 right here. But again, planted them in the fall. They have handled the heat, humidity. They've got beautiful new growth. You can always typically tell the new growth because it'll be a lighter color. So they are still actively growing here in August in the full sun. And if you know camellias, that is not what camellias do. But that's the great thing about the October Magic series from Southern Living, is that they do enjoy the sun. They are not just shade camellias. Yeah, the trees, we've got the 2 cherry trees. These are Yoshinos. I always have to think for a second. The 2 Yoshinos on this side, and then the Thundercloud Purple Plum all went in at the same time. But just, I need you to kind of like shift our brain a little bit, because typically I think most folks think of spring is for planting, and it makes sense, right? You're coming out of winter, you're going into the active growing season, so we want to incorporate beautiful things in our gardens at that time, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's why annuals are so fantastic in the springtime. But thinking long term, less work on you, what makes sense from a horticultural standpoint is adding those trees, shrubs, those perennials that love it cold in the fall, get nice and established, and go through the winter, tons of root growth. The heat hits for July and August, and they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm established, I'm good, I am happy, I got plenty of water and plenty of food because my roots are really strong and happy. So if you have questions, we would love to help you here at Creekside Nursery. That is what we do. We are really customer focused. You can come. We are more than happy to help you with your landscape. If you want us to help, like if you have questions about plants, when should I plant this? When should I do that? Of course, we will help you. If you are interested in us installing landscapes for you, we will happily do that as well. We have a fantastic team just here at the Creekside family where we work together in designing, planning, installing. So if you have landscape projects that you would like to tackle this fall, winter, next spring, please contact us. We would love to have walk you through that whole process, whether it's that you want to install it and you need help designing and planning it, we're happy to help you. Or if you want us to do the full shebang, we'll do that as well. So just reach out to us. You can send us a message. You can email us at the orders at Gardening with Creekside. You can send us, any way you can get a message to us, and we will get in contact and get all that squared away. But if you're not local to Gardening with Creekside, if you're on the other side of the country, or if you're, hours and hours away, visit your local garden center, right? Go see what they have, talk to them, ask questions for them. They will be happy to help you, I know. So fall is for planting. This is why we plant in the fall, right here. Yes, absolute testimony. So as always, we hope you have found this fun, informative, and inspirational. We so appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for Gardening with Creekside. Bye, friends.